You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. What's up, everybody? We are back with another episode of Stories Behind the Songs, and this week we're sitting down with my buddy Chris DeStefano. Man, Chris has written songs for so many amazing artists like Luke Bryan, Chase Rice, Dan and Shay, Carrie Underwood, Chris Young, Morgan Evans, Miranda Lambert, Jason Aldean, Rascal Flatts, Jake Owen, Thomas Rhett, Jason Mraz. I have to breathe. There's just these are just to name a few. There's so many I could go on and on. Chris is not only an incredible writer, but he is an amazing guitar player and has a great voice. If you've ever seen him play live at the Listening Room, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you're going to hear more about that later in this episode when he plays a couple of his songs. Chris came to Nashville from New Jersey back in 2013 and started to hit the ground running with his first write in town, turning into a cut for the Eli Young Band. And Chris has been dedicated to music since the beginning, spending like 10 to 12 hours a day learning guitar and traveling with his choir group growing up. So moving to Nashville was a no-brainer. You're going to hear about that. We covered topics like the difference between songwriting communities in Nashville versus LA, a deep dive into several of his cuts, including Something in the Water and Good Girl for Carrie Underwood, I Feel Like Dancing for Jason Mraz, Rewind for Rascal Flatts, and his cut for Chris Young, End of a Bar. Chris takes us into the writer's room with Carrie Underwood and Chris Young. You're going to feel like you were there with them when they wrote these songs. It's an incredible story. Got to check it out. We also talk about his publishing company, Win Songs, and Chris discusses how he started it and how it's taken off ever since, with writers like Emily Shackleton, Jason Duke, Eric Van Houten on the roster, which, by the way, all have been guests on our podcast, so you know they're good, right? Give Chris a follow in the liner notes below to stay up to date, and give us a follow if you enjoyed this episode, so we are able to sit down with more amazing songwriters and keep doing this podcast. We love it, and we love you for the support. We also want to give a special shout out, as always, to our sponsors, Sennheiser and Perfect Esthetician and All Clear In-Ears. If you are looking for a good set of in-ear monitors, make sure to take advantage of our code, SBT Songs. You get 10% off at checkout. All right, let's get to it. Here is this week's episode with Chris DeStefano. All right, here we are back at the Listening Room with my boy, Chris DeStefano, in the house. How you doing, man?
Good, Chris. How are you, man?
Good. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Man, this is like morning for most of us, but you've already done jiu-jitsu, you've already played ice hockey this morning, and now you're here on the podcast.
Well, we got two little ones, so
yeah.
Everything I do, I gotta usually get it in really early, usually before the kids get up. I like to still have breakfast with my kids, and
that's awesome.
And see them off to school. So
yep.
it's you get
that's
used
important.
to that. Get used to waking up early, and then it's not such a big deal.
Yep. I'm the same way. Yep.
Heck yeah.
Used to be a night owl, and now it's like 5:30.
Yeah. And I'm in bed by 9.
Yeah, exactly,
ready to go. Yeah,
yes.
I hear you.
All right, man. Well, there's we've known each other for so long now, and I pretend I don't know any of the stories, so that we can really dive in.
Cool.
But there's just so many songs that I want to dive into. That's so amazing. Let's do a very brief intro into how you got into music in the first place and what brought you to Nashville.
Yeah, so I born and raised in New Jersey, kind of the they call it the Garden State. That's kind of the area that I grew up in, was just all farms and just wide open areas, and I got into music. I remember I was in elementary school, and one day my music teacher sends me home with a letter addressed to my parents, and so I give it to my mom, and my mom, being, the old school Italian that she is, she starts crying, and here I'm thinking I'm in trouble or something. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, you've been asked to audition, for the Philadelphia Boys Choir." And I was about 8 years old at the time, 7 or 8. And so she's like, "Oh, it's thinking that whatever, mom being mom." And she, so I went and I auditioned and got in, and it was an amazing experience. I kind of fell in love with music. I mean, I knew I already loved music, but that was kind of my first, we toured all over Europe. We did TV, national TV things here in the States. And, it was kind of like my exposure to singing and, and just kind of learning about, connecting with different pitches and things, and really being able to sing melodies. And I knew I kind of got bit by a bug then. So I did that for a few years. And then when I was about 13, I picked up the guitar. I remember, my buddy of mine wanting to start a band. I think I wanted to play keyboards initially, but I didn't have a keyboard. My dad had a guitar. And so, he had a old Gibson Les Paul and so I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll start learning how to play guitar. And I just got bit by the bug immediately. I mean, so that's kind of how I got into strumming and picking, and I became completely obsessed, playing 10 plus hours a day, every day for, I'd say about 3 years. Didn't miss a day of practice. I'd say minimum I played in that 3 years was probably 6 hours on any given day.
Wow.
But average probably, 8 to 10 hours a day, just learning modes and, all kinds of different techniques.
Yeah.
Many of them I would never use again, but, this is kind of the long backstory, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what you're asking about.
So what year was it that you moved to Nashville then?
So I moved, I guess my permanent move was around 2013.
Okay.
My first trip here was in June of 2010, and just fell in love with it immediately. Like dear friends to this day. From literally my first writes in town. I think my first write in town was with Josh Keir and Cat Gravitt. We wrote a song that the Eli Young Band cut, and that might have been my first write in town, which was, at the time, this was like in the I Need You Now prime, you know? So here I'm like, first day in Nashville. I literally kind of stepped into it, but I did more than I think pay my dues. And, I was out in LA for 10 plus years.
I want to touch on that, because you were writing in both Nashville and LA, and a lot of the guests that we have on, most of the guests that we have on, are only doing it here.
Sure.
So talk about that process. Like what is different about LA and Nashville?
Well, at the time, this is 10 plus years ago now. The workflow, at least for my workflow, it was actually very similar. I mean, I was always kind of hey, let's get together in the morning. Let's write a song and have a record by 5 or 6 o'clock, So that was always my workflow. So the work, I feel like the segue wasn't that much of a change for me coming here.
Yeah.
I think as far as the community goes, it kind of opened my eyes to really see how tight the community was at the time and still is here in Nashville. LA is obviously there's a big community, but there's also a lot of small communities in LA in the music business.
Yeah.
Also because there's so many genres there as well. So here in Nashville, it's kind of like there was always that kind of like one like common fabric, common thread. Everybody knew everybody. They talk about it. Oh, it's like high school with money. It's like, that was always the joke, but it is true. And I, even in LA, it would be like, I'd be whatever busting out a mandolin to write a song, and people would always be like, oh, that's a little bit odd. Usually it's like we're coming in writing to tracks, but it always kind of like, I think my workflow was just always that. I kind of, that's why when I first came to Nashville, it just felt immediately like home. It was like, this is awesome. Everybody likes to work the way I like to work. So
yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have made a mark here in town, and we've always enjoyed you playing the listening room.
Thank you, brother.
Let's just start diving into some songs, because there's just so many. So let's first talk about your relationship with the amazing, talented Carrie Underwood.
Yeah. I mean, I call her the incomparable Carrie. Now, she obviously has been a huge part of my career, my life. I'm very grateful to Carrie. It's been, we've been writing together now. I want to say my first write with her was in 2012, and it's been amazing. Like, she can do, obviously, sing anything, but what a lot of people don't know about Carrie is that she is every bit the songwriter as she is the vocalist.
Yeah.
So, when you're in the room with her, it's like you kind of got to, just let her do her thing. Cause a lot of times it's just, there's just diamonds in all of those those melodies that come out, and that workflow. She's just great to create with. I mean, we've had days where we've written one song and been like, all right, we'll call it a day, and then there's other days where we're like, we'll finish a great song that we feel good about, and she's like, hey, let's rock another one, So she's never one to tap out just because we get something. It's like, hey, let's do another one. Let's go for a twofer. So it's awesome creating with her. She really is a force.
Well, you guys have written some smashes together. Good Girl, Something in the Water, Champion. Let's dive into you pick. Or we can talk about all of them. We got time. Let's but take us into the room, like how the ideas came about and just the story behind the songs.
Yeah. Well, golly. You mentioned the Champion. That song is a special one to me. It was that was her idea. We've had a long lasting relationship with NBC. Her relationship with NBC obviously goes longer than mine, but I came in as a producer for the Sunday Night Football theme. So I've been producing that now for about the last 8 seasons or so. And that's just an absolute. I love doing that. NBC folks are awesome. They're great to work with. And so we knew we had that relationship. We knew they were hosting the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so Carrie had this idea to, hey, let's take a shot, write a song for the Super Bowl. And obviously my good buddy Brett James and I were all in on that idea. And so that was the Champion was kind of one of those songs that it was really great to see that do its thing in the Super Bowl. That was incredible. Obviously that's a massive event, and to have that song kind of kick it all off felt really good. But that song's kind of been one of those that has kind of transcended that in a lot of ways, and kind of the scope of it has opened up to other things that I didn't really anticipate. As far as how it's impacted people in their lives and personally, and that's been a really big a big part of that song for me is just and then also the genre, how it kind of crossed genres as
with
well,
the rap
which
version in it.
Chris Bridges jumping in on that as well, just writing just such a great rap.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all in on that rap. I think it just says a lot about life. It says a lot about about drive and about dedicating yourself. It says a lot.
Yeah.
Which was our idea for the song. That's what we wanted. We really wanted it to be an anthem, but something that gave people strength. And I think it did that.
Well, and that one was also in the Olympics.
And it was So NBC hosted the Olympics as well that year as well, and so they made it the theme to the Olympics. So it's again, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like you try to catch that lightning in the room the day of.
Yeah.
And you don't see how big that ripple effect is going to be until you just kind of let it go.
Yeah. Let's dive into a little bit of Something in the Water. I love this song. You play it here pretty much every time you play. Mm-hmm. And still today, it's just one of those songs that just gets a massive response. Take us into the day that you wrote that.
Yeah, so that was a day in September, I believe. It was a beautiful day in September. I remember waking up early. I think I was up at about 5:30, kind of prepping ideas. It's almost like I feel like it's always good to get a little bit scared before a write, where you're like, gotta bring something. You know what I mean? That little bit of fear is a good thing. Because it can very easy, I feel like the line between being scared and being inspired is very close. And so I remember waking up and kind of getting into my studio. And, I always like to bring at least a few what they call track ideas, just all the instruments recorded, make it sound like a record without any vocals. And so I had a couple ideas that day. I think I had maybe 3. And this one in particular, again, it just felt special. I didn't know what it was going to be about. I just, I had that, that riff that was kind of that ostinato kind of going. And then, you know, I mean, it was the full arrangement, but I kind of produced that up, and I think we were writing at noon, so I drove out to Carrie's cabin and pulled up my dad's 2010 Ford Taurus, you know, that I bought from him. It was a great car. And Brett James pulls up behind me on his Harley Davidson with his guitar strapped to his back.
I love it.
One of the, like, it already felt like, a, you know, literally Carrie was outside with a cup of coffee, like, hey guys, good morning, you know, whatever time it was. So we get inside, and, you know, I remember, I know I joke about it, but, you know, a lot of times we apologize for ideas in case your co-writers hate the idea. That way you're kind of immediately forgiven. And I said something like, you guys are going to love this or hate it. And I played it for them. And Carrie was immediately like, I think even on the first pass through the song, like the second chorus, she started singing some of the melodies, even, you know, roughly what you hear. She was kind of just scatting some of these melodies. And then, you know, I remember stopping the track, and she had said, you know, I've been wanting to write this song about the baptismal water called Something in the Water. And we're just like that. It felt perfect for that music. You know, it just felt like that is the idea. That's what it needs to be. And it was kind of one of those that came out quick. You know, I think we wrote it in maybe, I don't know, an hour or two. It was a fast write, and then we, you know, tracked the vocal. It was, you know, feeling so good, and then one time through, as we were all listening, I hear Carrie in the background just start singing "Amazing Grace" you know, in the outro. And I mean, it's even like just thinking about it, it was a moment. It was a real moment. Yeah. And obviously, we're like, we have to put that in. That's so special. And so that's kind of how it all came out. I think that it was one of those days that just God was in the room. You know, I can't take credit for it.
You want to play a little bit of it?
Sure. He said, I've been where you've been before, down every hallway's a slamming door. No way out, no one to come and save me, wasting the life that the good Lord gave me. Then somebody said what I'm saying to you, opened my eyes and told me the truth. They said, just a little faith, it'll all get better. So we'll follow that preacher man down to the river, and now I'm changed. I am stronger. Oh, there must be something in the water. Oh, there must have been something in the water.
Man, so good. Your voice, too.
Man.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah. I feel like we need that.
The stomper.
The stomper. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go, man.
All right, let's keep going. We were here just the other night, and you invited your buddy Chris Young up, to play. So let's dive into that song.
Yeah. Man, I've been a fan of Chris's forever. I think it was either that first trip to Nashville or the second. I want to say it was the first one that I met Chris at the end of a bar. At Losers, and we were I was hanging out with my buddy David Hodges, and we were just David and I were kind of time sharing a condo downtown together, down off Demumbrian, and so we would walk up to Division a lot. And so we're that's kind of how I met Chris. We were just hanging out there, and met CY and became fast friends. It's just, you know, he's just one of those guys. I know he's friends with everybody, which is awesome. You know, he's that guy. He's just such a likable dude and so generous, and just a true lover, true talent, true talent. I mean, you know, vocals, writing, his songwriting. I really can't say enough about my brother Chris. So we started writing together. You know, had a few songs on the AM record, and I think every record since. But we we just love creating together.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be for him, sometimes other people.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
I know he mentioned it the other night. We wrote two songs with Phil Collin from Def Leppard, which we're super pumped about.
Yeah.
Looks like they're gonna cut both of them, and so
it's crazy,
kind of cool. You know,
Yeah.
like a little. You know, that's definitely a bucket list item for sure. First album I ever learned cover to cover was Def Leppard Hysteria.
Love it.
So that goes back for me. That's like, you know, that's in my blood.
Yep.
But yeah, so Chris and I have been creating forever, and he's just great to work with. It's like, you know, he's easy, but very focused and knows what he hears, knows what he you know, he's the guy that's like, hey man, can you pull a little bit of 300 out of my vocal? Like he's like real specific when it comes to it, but he also is like he's like respect in the room, you know, which is always great to have. It makes everybody feel like they want to not only bring the A game, but also you just don't want to let him down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, let's just get something great. But yeah, I really enjoy creating with Chris. You know, our most recent song, we wrote a song with our other good friend Mitchell Tenpenny.
Yeah.
Which recently went number one. Which this song, I joke about that it almost never got written because it was the day of a huge snow and ice storm in Nashville. I always joke about, you know, the blizzard that hit, you know, left an inch of snow on the ground.
Exactly.
You know, shut the whole town down.
Sometimes there's no snow on the ground and it shuts the town down.
Hey, I like that. Let's
chance
go.
for it. Yeah.
Hey, come on. I love the lack of infrastructure. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah, that was a special one. And, you know, and Chris, I mean, again, we talk about, his humility, but, you know, I had asked him, I took a long shot. I'm like, maybe he'll say yes to doing a writer's round. I mean, you know, he's a busy dude, obviously.
Dude, listen, we were hanging out before the show and I was like, man, thanks for playing. Like you hardly ever play anymore. And he literally, not making this up, he was like, man, it literally, if anybody else would have called me other than DeStefano, I probably would have said no. But when Chris calls, I love that guy. And he was like, you know, it was just like, okay, I'll do it.
Man.
I mean, everything that you're saying about him, like he was literally saying those same things about you.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. He's just real people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't say enough good about him.
Yeah.
Good dude.
So when you guys were writing at the end of the bar, what was that literally just, did it come up because you guys met at the end of the bar? Like
that's kind of what happened. I mean, because he had met Mitchell at the end of a bar too. Same bar.
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, you know, that's the thing is like, you know, when you have a stomping ground and you're, you know, just hanging out, those stories come up. And so it was certainly real, but I remember because they got this to the studio a little late not late, it was noon, whatever it was, 12:30, something like that. You know, we had 11 o'clock because of the ice. They're like, hey, yeah, well, let's still do it. So I was kind of just throwing down some guitar. A lot of times that's what I'll do is just kind of put up a beat or something that kind of feels good and then just start playing all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like what's just going to feel like lightning, you know what I mean? What's just has a feel, a vibe to it, whatever it may be. A lot of times
that's 6 to 10 hours a day of playing guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Of which I play about 3 chords now, you know, so, you know, it's all that advanced modality that I was working on, you know, and sweet picking doesn't really mean, you know, that never made me any money. So this 3 chords did though. So I started kind of doing this like, simple, you know, just 2 chords. I mean, that's all, you know, but that just like, and then even after the chorus, there's that little what was it? Again, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, what is that? I don't even know. It's just a little walk. It's so simple, but maybe there's a little moment there of some kind. And again, sometimes these things can kind of help drive melodic ideas.
Right.
At least that's the way I look at, you know, the math of music. The musical math is very important. But yeah, and then the boys came over, we were just in conversation, and literally it wasn't even a title that any of us had. It was just came up in story, and yes, somebody said something about, hanging out, meeting at the end of a bar.
Yeah.
And hence the song.
Huge song. Love it.
Oh man, thank you, buddy. Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Sennheiser microphones. When we first started this podcast, we were using some older microphones, and Sennheiser came in and sponsored us and gave us some MK4s and 914s. And I mean, I'm telling you, it's made all of the difference in the world. We love these microphones. We use them at the listening room as well. And I just can't say enough great things about them. Go check out Sennheiser.com. If you are into music in any way, their microphones are hands down the best on the planet. Go check them out, Sennheiser.com. And thank you, Sennheiser, for the support and the sponsorship. We love y'all. You've got so many. I know we're not going to have time to dive into everything.
Sure.
But I mean, like, what would you say? Like, I've asked this question before, and I know it's like asking you to pick your favorite child, but
yep.
Is there, like, of all the hits that you've got in your catalog, is there one that just is super, super special to you that just means a lot?
Gosh, they're all special in their own way.
Yeah. I know that's tough.
It's certainly a loaded question. Golly, I mean, they're all special in different ways. That's a real tough question. I know there's other writers that are probably like, oh yeah, this song for sure, 100%. This is the one that's, I mean, Good Girl, it was my first number one, my first big hit. That if I had to choose, it would probably be that, just because of the time period that it,
sure,
going from completely starving songwriter to, to, not only successful, but also like just kind of being, getting on the radar all of a sudden.
Yeah, of course.
It was a very much a pivotal life moment for me. Where I had been through what I'd been through, and then all of a sudden that song kind of just, it was a shift in life. Yeah. So I'd say that was a very special one. I mean, they're all special,
right?
That in that context.
I'd love to hear. I mean, you've got. Everybody listening heard the intro I did of all of the artists that have cut your songs. I mean, you've got like this. It's just this a massive catalog. One of the songs that I am interested to hear the story behind, that you don't play often, and I don't even know if I know the story behind this, but Rewind for Rascal Flatts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, where did that come about?
Yeah, so good question. Yeah, so I was writing with my two good buddies, Ashley Gorley and Eric Pasley, and both, in my opinion, need no introduction.
No,
Ashley, arguably the most successful songwriter in history.
Ever,
we I believe we were right, because Eric at the time was really doing the artist thing, and we were, I believe, we were kind of writing for Eric that day. I think we were thinking that, but again, it's like this: when you're a songwriter to Eric's caliber, you write songs that other artists cut all the time, right? So that's not uncommon at all.
Yeah.
So we were just trying to write the best song that we could come up with, and one of them had the idea of Rewind, and so then we started just kind of throwing out all these ideas of like just coming up, like making this, reach out, reset, like just all of these kind of consonant, these sounds that could be incorporated through the lyric, just keeping that as like a common thread throughout the whole lyric. I feel like everybody can relate to a night that you just want to do over and over again, right? I feel like that's, in a lot of ways, that's why we have good times, because you're like, wow, we just had an awesome time last week. Let's try to recreate that and do it again, you know? And so it was kind of, again, one of those things where one of those ideas that the song kind of, not writes itself, but it's easy to hang a song on that idea. There's a lot of angles you can come at the song when you start really unpacking that. And so that's kind of what we were thinking about. And so we wrote the song. I mean, a lot of times, even though I produce tracks, a lot of times too, we'll write the song before I even dig into track idea.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's grab some guitars and, depending on the dynamic of the song, kind of what we feel it needs. But in that situation, and that's even like where that little underwater-y guitar thing going, that was after the fact. There was this kind of little guitar riff, but and then I had been a Flatts fan forever.
Yeah,
like I mean, like I cut my country teeth on Flatts, like back in the day. Like I remember spinning their records when I was just strictly a fan, just going, gosh, these guys are awesome. And so and now now they're buddies, or I should say the late Rascal Flatts, but they're they're incredible. I mean, obviously Gary's voice is unbelievable. I mean,
I remember when they were playing Printer's Alley.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, when I first moved here, they were still jamming Printer's Alley every now and then. They'd been playing, like they had a house gig there, and they'd still come back every now and then. It was like, man,
sick.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
History, man, that's awesome.
All right, there's some other things I want to dive into, just because just other cool stories I know about you. But
shoot.
Before, let's just pick one more song.
Okay.
Any song that you think just has a really cool story of how the idea came about and how you guys wrote it?
Gosh, I think. I always go back to. I wrote this song with Jason Mraz, called "I Feel Like Dancing."
Yeah,
and it's a simple topic, right?
Yeah.
But it's also something that everybody can kind of identify with.
Yep.
And
it's Jason Mraz.
It's Jason Mraz, right? I mean, wordsmith, like an absolute lyrical genius. It was my first time writing with him, and it was at a 13th century castle in France, which is always nice. That's always a nice place to write a song.
Yeah,
so
not bad.
It doesn't happen often, but in this particular situation, it was back in 2017. We wrote this song and with our friend Steph Jones, and Jason had this idea, and it was just kind of felt right. And again, that's one of the cool things about writing with somebody like Jason. You can kind of throw out any ideas, and he can just make them, make them him and make them great. So it was a fun write. And lyrically, it's a real fun song to sing. You got to take deep breaths, because it's it's a lot of lyric. But that was a special one. I remember that night. It was during a songwriter camp, and so at the end of the camp, everybody, or at the end of the day rather, everybody plays the songs from the day, and usually they're pretty produced up. There's 6 or so writer or producer rooms, so everybody plays the songs, and I remember everybody really reacting to that one. And, I had to be patient with it too, because he didn't tell us he was going to release it until 2022, so it took a minute. But
wow.
There's each song has special stories. That one just kind of came to mind as you asked the question. But that was a fun one.
Yeah.
That's a real fun one.
This is a different interview because, typically, I know, the 2 or 3 songs I want to dive into, you have like 100 that I could talk about.
Man.
It's so
thank you, buddy.
It's hard to pick. There's just so many good ones out there.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that, man.
I want to twist it a little bit, because I know this will fire you up a little bit. Let's switch to sitting around a campfire in Monteagle, Tennessee, where we're just playing guitars and hanging out and just all this. When was this? 2017, probably. Yeah. that you and I were out at this cabin, and you pull out night goggles out of your bag, and you're like, dude, check this out. You could see in the woods.
Oh man.
And that's when I first learned like how into all of that you are. And you've got a whole story of like working with like FBI and like trainer, like going to these like camps and all this. Like, I know it's a big passion of yours. Like, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like it's that a lot of it started is just when I moved to Tennessee. I don't know if it was the culture or it was just, I felt just the sense of, just America, freedom that just felt really good to me, and so I didn't grow up, shooting or anything. But, my father-in-law, gave me my first firearm. And so, I started kind of getting into that a little bit just around that exact same time. I made some of my best friends to this day are, former SEAL team guys, and just American heroes, incredible people. And so then I started training with them. And then I just kind of got bit by this new found respect and admiration for our heroes, which I always had.
Yeah.
But it was another level. I feel like it was just really, I don't know, it touched me. And so it wasn't even something that I so much went out and actively sought out, but it just kind of, again, it's like, I feel like when you immerse yourself in something, all of a sudden these things will just kind of start presenting themselves in your life. And I remember somebody reaching out to me. So I'll say who it was. My good friend, Bart Herbison from NSAI, had reached out, and he knew that I was a huge supporter of our law enforcement and military. And so he had done the FBI Citizens Academy and just had amazing things to say about it. And so he had nomination powers. And so he nominated me this was back in 2018, nominated me for the FBI Citizens Academy. And so I went through that, and it was incredible. You get 6 weeks. It's one day a week, but you learn a lot about what the FBI, the scope of what FBI does, hostage negotiation and white collar crime, blue collar crime, cyber crime, FBI SWAT. I mean, there's all kinds of things that really, they're amazing people. And so I did that. That was amazing. And then, again, somehow, again, as I'm immersed in all of these things, my other friend nominated me for the Marine Corps Executive Forum, which is you spend a day with the Marine Corps out in Quantico. You start at the Pentagon, and then you go to Quantico and fly around in V-22 Ospreys and do all kinds of shooting. And it's, again, the people that you meet are the highlight, right? I mean, I can talk about the experience that I got to have all day long, which was amazing, and they made it amazing. But through that same connection at the Pentagon, I was asked to be a part of the JCOC, which is the Joint. Everything's an acronym in the military, right? Yeah. The JCOC, which is the Joint Civilian Orientation Conference, which is another. That's the Department of Defense liaison program. So everybody, it seems like they all have their liaison programs. This is kind of the mother, in my opinion, the mother of them all, because you get to train with all of the armed forces, and it's a week long, and you're flying all over the country. I mean, it's really something else. Yeah. And that was about a year and a half ago, October of 2022. I went through the JCOC. And got to, again, I mean, the common thread is just these amazing human beings just defending freedom, just dedicating themselves, sacrificing. I mean, and again, I mean, I can't give them enough props, but I also to their families, because their families are dedicating themselves as well.
Sure.
A lot of times, a lot of these men and women go off, and they're they're off for months and months at a time. And
Yeah.
so those the sacrifice that the families have to make is really something to be commended. But yeah, so all that to say, it's like I got into it thinking it was one thing and then just opening my eyes to just this whole other, also got to give my brother huge props as well. He was a TAC fighter pilot for the Navy. He's as close to a blood brother as I've had. I've known him since I was 4 years old, and he flew F-14s all the way up through the F-35. I know you're a pilot as well. He actually helped design the Gen 1 F-35.
So cool.
I remember him, coming over to my little hole-in-the-wall apartment in Los Angeles before I had any hits, and he'd have a stack of books about this, and it was like, Lockheed, McDonnell Douglas, like all just different, all the, subcontractors for the project, which was an extensive one. I think it was like a $400 billion contract, something crazy, biggest defense contract. Yeah. Anyway, not to go all down a hole. Yeah. No, that's more than answers your question.
It's just so cool. And it's just, it's just the experiences that you've gotten to do is just incredible. So
thank you, buddy. No, I'm grateful to be a part of them.
Yeah.
I've been a part of them.
All right. Before we wrap up, I want to shift gears a little bit because I think one of the unique things about you, not only are you an incredible guitar player, singer, and vocalist, and have written, this amazing catalog.
Thank you.
But the hat that you're wearing,
you
are also the founder owner of Wind Songs Publishing. Mm-hmm. 3 previous guests on the podcast, Emily Shackleton, Eric Van Houten, and Jason Duke are all a part of your roster. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's a cool twist that you did that. So just talk a little bit about what inspired you to start that and what it's all about.
Sure. That's easy. I wouldn't be anywhere without the team that has gotten me here, the teams, because since day one of coming to Nashville, it was EMI, it was, Josh Van Valkenburg, Tom Luter, and, the whole EMI crew, now Sony ATV, as well as other teams as well. I mean, at the time, my buddy Ashley, who I wrote, I've had 10 number ones with, Chris Farron at Combustion, Falcon, that whole Combustion crew was a huge part of kicking my career off. And so it just felt right. Like, it just felt like something I had to do is start something. Again, now it's like, I'm not, I feel like, they're on their way. They're already there. I mean, this, I know Jason and Emily, they've already rang the bells with big smash number ones. But I just love working with talent. Sometimes new talent, sometimes, talent that's got, more than a foot in the door, already off the ground. That's, they're hot. And so, it just felt right. And I just love doing it. It's a great thing. They inspire me. I mean, I get songs from them and I'm just like, gosh, that is such an inspiring song, such a hammer. I mean, just amazing. Some of these songs they submit are truly inspiring. So, I just love doing it. And our creative director, Erin Kidd, is an absolute rock star.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She really
She worked for us for a while.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, she was a server here for a long time.
Yeah, that's what she said. Yeah, the full circle.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's incredible. So yeah, it's a joyful thing, to be able to work with them.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I always end on the same question, so I'm going to do that, but I'm going to put you on the spot too before we do that. I know it's a lot of words and it's a lot of breaths, but can you play a little bit of the Jason Mraz song?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Deep breaths. Come on.
I like to dance and it looks like this. I like to dance and it looks like this. I like to pop and lock, hit you with a little bit of robot. Gotta hit it and get it and love it and live it and get a little silly with the lyrical ridiculousness, yeah. I like to nod my head. I like to shake a leg. I like to nod my head. I like to walk into a party with a pirouette. A little move goes a long way, like a soul train line in a hallway. It's your way, my way, all day. My kind of magic is automatic. I feel like dancing. I feel like dancing. Even if it's raining, I'm not complaining. I feel like dancing. 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 I feel like dancing.
Yeah. Let's go. That's a way to end it right there, man.
Thanks,
I love
buddy.
it.
Thank you.
All right. If you can go back to 8-year-old Chris,
Yeah.
all the success that you've had, what advice do you give yourself today?
No. Oh gosh, that's a great question. I would just say, yeah, just go into the depths. You know, go deep.
What do you mean by that?
Whatever it may be. Just don't scratch the surface of things. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you love something, just go all in. Just immerse yourself. Go.
Love it.
that because that is. I mean, it's hard. You know, my 8-year-old self would, you know, if it wasn't music, what would it be? Right? I would hope it would be something that I would just go into the depths.
Yeah.
Into.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you did go into the depths and you've written so many of the soundtrack of our lives.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
And we appreciate you and
Thanks,
everything
Chris.
you give to us in the music world.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, Chris. Thanks, listening room.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody out there, thanks for listening. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe. We appreciate the support as always. And this has been another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. I'm Chris Blair, and you've been listening to Chris DeStefano. We will see you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.